name. Anna will be here with us. She is basically she is a young leader, youth leader, advocate, and Anna works for the EngenderHealth, and she works there in her organization to mainstream high quality sexual and reproductive health programming and integrate all these things in their program, in their structure, and their working process. So it is a great work. She got on experience how to do this, and she will share all this experience through this power talk. So I would like to welcome Anna. Anna, please join with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Masuma. That was quite a lovely introduction. I really appreciate it. And welcome to everyone. I hope you had good breakout sessions. I know I did. Great. So I'll go ahead and get us started. I will not have a PPT, and I will ask you to do some reflection. So I'll just ask everyone to take a step back, maybe close out some of your tabs. I know you've been working hard on the whiteboard, and experience the next 10 to 15 minutes with all of us. So as Masuma said, my name is Ana Aguilera. I serve as the Deputy Director for Adolescent and Youth Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights at EngenderHealth. And at EngenderHealth, we work towards a gender equal world where all people can achieve their SRHR. And today I'm here to talk to you about the wonderful topic of the intersection between gender, age, and related biases, prejudices, and stereotypes, and how they relate to the topic of this conference, AYSRH. So to do this, I want to first ask everyone, whether you're on video or off video, whatever works for you, to take a step back and close your eyes. And I promise it won't be for very long, but just close your eyes and go back in time to a time in your own adolescence. Maybe you're 10, maybe you're 15, maybe you're 19. Think back to what it was like to be an adolescent. What you did, what you loved to do, maybe what you didn't enjoy doing so much that you had to do. So think about it in this headspace. Think about a time when you really, really wanted to do something, but you weren't allowed to. Or maybe it was something that the peers around you, your friends were doing, but that you couldn't do. Reflect a little bit to yourself on why it was that you were or weren't allowed to do this thing. Were you not allowed to do it? Was it maybe due to your age and perceptions that you were too young? Or maybe it was related to your gender identity and the expectations around what someone of your gender identity could or could not do in your community. Or maybe it was related to something like your family's economic status, or your race, or your ethnicity, or something else I haven't mentioned. So just take that moment and think about why it was that you couldn't do that thing. And now you can open your eyes. I want to share with you the example that I was thinking about as I was reflecting on this power talk. When I was 15, I started volunteering for this youth leadership and community development NGO. And through nearly 10 years of volunteering and then working for this organization, I learned what it was like to be an unpaid female volunteer. And despite all of my energy and all of my enthusiasm to work with adolescents and youth in my home community and in some host communities across Latin America, I came to quickly realize that I had to do things differently from other peers. As a 16-year-old girl, I had to hang out with the other girls because I come from a very machista or patriarchal society. Our male volunteer peers could go out at night. They could play soccer. They could learn how to do things with other boys. But for girls like me, I would be told that the best way for me to be safe was to stay home when it got dark. And at the time, I didn't really think about why I was not allowed to go outside. But looking back on that experience, it was not only my gender, but also my lived experience as an immigrant, as a girl, as an adolescent, from a lower income background, that in some ways dictated what I could and I could not do. And it wasn't one thing or another, it was the combination of my identities that set predetermined expectations that others had for me. So I would bet that all of us have a similar story that we could share. And maybe that's something that you were reflecting on. We've all been socialized under a core set of assumptions and expectations about who we are and what we believe in that revolve around these concepts of gender, age, and other identities that come together to make us who we are and that make us so special. Those expectations result in our own conscious and unconscious biases, prejudices, and stereotypes. And we all carry them throughout our personal and our professional lives. In this field that I've been working in for a little while, I see how the inequitable gender norms hold adolescents and youth of all gender identities back. And just as an example, as girls age and mature, generally speaking, we see gendered expectations that become more restricting. And we all sort of know this, and that's what our lived experience tells us. And we also know that this is then compounded by the stigma associated with SRHR. And we know for the researchers in this group that the data also tell us that young women receive less family support for taking on SRHR roles. They often receive less compensation, and they often also experience more backlash from their community for talking about sex and sexuality in the open. The Yield study, which was done a few years ago, looks at and surveyed young leaders across the world in SRHR. And one of their key findings was that over 70% of the survey respondents cited that both inequitable gender norms and stigma associated with speaking openly about SRHR are among the most significant barriers to female participation in leadership. And as we think about it personally, we as young people here or youth advocates, former young people, we grew up in this space and we experienced our own expectations. And we bring those memories and those expectations with us. And they shape how we act and what we do in any given situation. So for me, really supporting high quality gender and youth transformative work that respects and protects and fulfills the SRHR of young people everywhere first starts with ourselves, right? We need to challenge ourselves to think about concepts like gender being fluid, to become more comfortable with questioning our own assumptions about what's okay and what's not okay, looking at our own perceptions, the personal gender norms that we follow, how we view agency, and how we view power. So we have to find ways to continuously reflect on, challenge, and change these harmful and negative biases, prejudices, and stereotypes. And we all have them, and that's okay because we all grew up in our own gendered society with expectations of us. And so ultimately for me, AYSRHR at its core is about power. If we fundamentally believe that adolescents and youth are experts in their own lives and that they have sexual and reproductive rights, then it's our job to do everything we can to shift inequitable power structures that undermine their voice, their agency, and most importantly, their power. And shifting these structures requires us to challenge and change our own gender, age, and related social norms, because those norms underpin these power structures. And oftentimes, I like to we think about these power structures as grandiose and really hard to counteract and really address. But ultimately, power structures are made up by society. And we make up society, each and every one of us. And so it's up to people like you and I to really think about, challenge, and change these norms so we can start changing the structures. And so today, last, I leave you with one request. As we go through this wonderful knowledge management conference in our small groups and in plenaries, I'd like you to think about just one gender or age or other related bias, prejudice, or stereotype that you have been socialized to follow or adhere to in some way, and that you'd like to think about more, you'd like to reflect on more, you'd like to challenge it, and maybe even change it. And think about how that process might help you become a better AYSRHR advocate, and how you could work on that over the coming days and weeks and months, and really for the rest of our lives. So I thank you for your time and really excited to continue this conference.